80% of your immune system resides in your gut, which impacts your overall health. Imbalances in your gut can lead to PMS, acne, bloating, fatigue, mood swings, and thyroid issues. How to heal your gut to balance out your hormones. Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of She's in Sync, the podcast for women looking to have a safe and empowering transition off birth control without symptoms. So, I am going to talk about a really fun topic today, and it's the relationship between your gut and your hormones. And before I dive in, I wanted to just take a step back and say that although I don't talk about this a lot, I do have a lot of training in gut health, and 99% of my clients, we're working on some facet of their gut. Most people come to me and they have some sort of gut issue. So they have experienced diarrhea, constipation, bloating, gas, something of that sort. And most of them have been through eliminating foods or restrictive diets. They might have been on antibiotics before or random probiotics, random gut supplements, things like that. And what they don't know is that there's a very clear link between gut health and hormone health. And I've shared this in past episodes of how I made the mistake throughout my healing journey post birth control of jumping straight to hormones. And this was a mistake because you're skipping like 10 steps prior to getting to your hormones. So this is why I rarely do hormone testing in my practice. A lot of times you don't need it because the women I'm working with, we're looking at, okay, what are the deeper mechanisms that are causing your acne, that are causing your painful or missing periods, that are causing your PMS? And it's not the hormones themselves. Those are some of the last things to change. So, what's causing that hormone dysregulation isn't identified. And a big piece of that has to do with gut health, which is what we're going to be diving into today. Before we start, I have a fun little quiz. I want to do something a bit different with you all today. I know a lot of you are probably listening to this while you're multitasking or you're driving. So, obviously, you may not have space or be in a place where you can stop and like jot down notes or make slash marks just to count your score. But if you are, I would encourage you to get a piece of paper or, use your hands, something like that, just take mental note of these things to see where you fall. Or you can come back to this quiz later and take it. But this is a cute little quiz that helps identify whether or not you might have a gut and hormone imbalance. So the first question is, do you ever experience frequent gas, bloating, or stomach discomfort? If yes, just put like a check mark. Do you struggle with constipation, diarrhea, or irregular bowel movements? Have you noticed undigested food in your stool? Do you often feel nauseous after eating? Have you taken antibiotics multiple times in the past? Do you suffer from irregular, painful, or heavy periods? Do you experience frequent mood swings, anxiety, or depression? Do you struggle with any skin conditions like acne? Do you deal with extreme fatigue and even after you get a full night's sleep, wake up feeling tired and not rested? Do you have tender breasts or migraines frequently? Have you used hormonal birth control for several years, or have you had a past history of using hormonal birth control? And I'll put a bonus question on here of, were you put on hormonal birth control to quote unquote balance your hormones? Okay, so those are all the questions. If you answered 0 to 4, yes to any of those, your gut and hormones are probably imbalanced. There might be some imbalances there, but we're not looking for perfection. If you answered 5 to 9 questions, then your symptoms do suggest there are possible gut or hormone imbalances, and addressing digestion and hormone health might be beneficial. And if you answered 10 plus answers, yes, then you probably have a significant gut and hormone dysfunction or imbalance, and functional testing and targeted healing could be really helpful for you. So I wanted to start with that because a lot of times women may not recognize that there is a gut factor at play in their hormone imbalances. Again, we're really taught to jump straight to hormone testing, hormone supplements, foods to balance our hormones. And that's something, even I call myself a hormone dietitian, and I've gone back and forth whether I want to call myself that because I'm like, it's so much more than just hormones. And at the same time, that's what the lay person, the average person, is searching. And that's what they're being told and they're thinking. And don't get me wrong, hormones are obviously really, really important. But it's also really, really important to have all the key players of healthy hormones balanced, right? Like those foundations in play. So your minerals, your gut health, your stress, fueling your body appropriately for your hormones to be in tip top shape. And one thing, too, I want to know as well is that a lot of people don't think they have symptoms or they may not have symptoms. So I fell in that camp of I, I was a dietitian and I ate really healthy, ate lots of fiber, drank lots of water, and I didn't have any gut symptoms. And so I was like, my gut's fine. Like when I was struggling with acne and irregular periods and anxiety, I jumped straight to the hormone route and skipped the gut. And that was a big mistake. And that's why I ended up spending thousands upon thousands of dollars trying to fix my acne because I didn't get to the root cause. I also didn't invest in functional testing until way down the road, which is a big mistake. I talk about that as well in other episodes if you're interested. But you can have gut dysregulation and imbalances in your gut without having digestive symptoms. On the other end of the spectrum, many women are suffering with significant gastrointestinal distress and symptoms, but they might not even realize that it's not normal. I can't tell you how many times I'm having conversations with women and they're sharing, I ask them detailed questions. Like I tell them right from the get go, I'm like, we're going to get really personal here. There's never too much TMI. And we talk about poop and we talk about bowel movements. And I ask them, how often are you going? Like, what's the consistency? What does it look like? What's the smell? Like, does it float? Like, all these things. And a lot of times people are like, I've never noticed that or I've never paid attention to it. And your poop can give us really good insight into your health. And a lot of times if they're not going to the bathroom, they're going a couple times a week, or they're constantly having loose stool, or there's food in their stool, they're not digesting their food, they're constantly bloated. They just feel like that's normal, or they've been told that by their doctor and that there's nothing they can do about it. So a lot of these women are coming to me with, years upon years of gastrointestinal issues. And they just thought it like, that's just me. There's no other option. And so it's really a joy for me to tell them, like, no, there are other options and you should be having regular bowel movements. You should be going poop one time a day, at least. Ideally, 1 to 2 times. It's a form of detoxification. We'll get into the nitty gritty of that here in a bit. But you also shouldn't have runny or loose stools or going too many times per day. So it's not normal to suffer from digestive issues and to feel bloated and constipated and have diarrhea. And there's a huge link between that and your hormone health. So we talked about what the issue is with jumping straight to fixing your hormones. We're skipping a lot of steps and not identifying why your hormones are dysregulated with, and your gut health could be one of them. Your gut influences a lot of things. So it influences your hormones, your metabolism, detoxification, and nutrient absorption. So minerals, I can do another deep dive on this eventually, but I love my minerals. And minerals and vitamins are really, really important. They run the body. And if you're not digesting and absorbing the nutrients from your food, that in and of itself can imbalance hormones. And there are certain stomach infections like H. pylori, that's a bad bacteria in your gut that resides in the stomach and can burrow into the stomach lining. That is a significant nutrient disruptor. And so that's something I do look for in the stool test with all my VIP clients, because if there's any H. pylori, we definitely want to eradicate that because it can cause nutrient absorption issues and it causes inflammation, which then impacts your hormone levels. Imbalances in your gut can lead to PMS, acne, bloating, fatigue, mood swings, and thyroid issues. Another cool fact is 80% of your immune system resides in your gut, which impacts your overall health. So another big marker I'm looking for in the GI map, which is the comprehensive stool analysis I do with all my VIP clients, is how is their gut immune system working? If they are constantly under stress, or if there is like an infection or overgrowth like H. pylori or a parasite, their immune system is going to be impacted. And that makes it more likely that these other symptoms are going to flare, like PMS, acne, thyroid issues, in addition to maybe more gut-centric symptoms like gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea. The gut brain also has a big connection too. So the gut produces neurotransmitters like serotonin, which affects mood and sleep. So, one of the other things I work on a lot with clients related to birth control and getting off of it is mood, right? So, we know about how I've talked before of how birth control impacts your brain, and your gut health also impacts your brain. So if you've been on birth control for a really long time, I mean, there's so much we can go into. I'm going to do another episode about this a little bit later, how birth control specifically impacts your brain, because it's a whole episode in of itself. But the gut brain connection too is really big. So if you have an imbalanced gut, which birth control impacts it, stress impacts it, food, diet impacts it. And then you add that layer of birth control on there, which has its own negative impacts on the gut and your brain, then that can, for some people, put them over the edge, and why a lot of people struggle with anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts and ideation, difficulty concentrating or thinking, brain fog, just not feeling like themselves on birth control or after coming off because of the impacts both the gut and birth control has on their brain. There's also the issue of having a weak gut microbiome. And your gut microbiome, just to take a step back and talk a little bit more about what that is, it's the levels of good and bad bacteria in your gut. So there's a delicate balance of everyone is made of tons of bacteria. There's more bacteria than we are people. I've heard someone say once, I don't remember who said that, but I was like, that's gross to think about, but also very true. And that includes in our gut. And there's the beneficial, the good guys, and then there's the non beneficial, the bad guys. And you want to make for sure you have that balance. So if you have too much bad bacteria in relation to good bacteria, or maybe you don't have too much bad bacteria, but your good bacteria is too low, this can be a significant contributor to acne, mood swings, PMS, and nutritional deficiencies. I will look at this in the GI map as well of what are the levels of good bacteria and bad bacteria. And just as a reminder, birth control inhibits the growth of beneficial bacteria and it promotes the growth of bad bacteria in your gut. So it really affects the gut microbiome in a bad way. So the longer you've been on it, the more prolonged of an effect this is going to be. And this isn't about taking a random probiotic and calling it a day. Like this is why specific testing is so helpful, because you don't want to waste your money. There are so many probiotic strains that are out there that if you're not getting one specifically for you and your body, you might just be wasting your money. Inflammation and leaky gut. Leaky gut is kind of an outdated term. It's technically called intestinal permeability, which is where the lining of your gut becomes permeable. So food particles that were meant to stay in the gut get through that lining and they enter the bloodstream and causes inflammation. This can, this obviously puts stress on your body, and this can impact hormone levels. This is a huge driver of painful periods, and it's a stressor on your body. It's a big drive of acne. It's a big cause of PMS, mood swings, things like that. So if you have damage to your intestinal lining, which can be caused by stress, birth control, poor diet, things like that, this can also lead to heavy periods, bloating, and chronic fatigue too. Your gut is also important for directly detoxifying and recycling estrogen, the sex hormone estrogen, so specific gut bacteria help regulate estrogen levels, and poor gut health can cause estrogen dominance. And estrogen dominant symptoms are PMS, fibroids, weight gain or difficulty losing weight, PMDD, and there's other symptoms as well. But the other thing we have to take into account here too is I think a lot of times estrogen gets this bad rap, and estrogen is a necessary hormone that we need. So I want to be careful with this, and this is where the testing is helpful, because it may not, even if you have these symptoms, it might not be estrogen dominance. It could be low progesterone in relation to estrogen. I see this a lot with women who maybe have a disordered eating history or chronic dieting, undernourishing themselves. That causes a lot of hormones to go low, but specifically progesterone, because it's telling your body like it's not safe to conceive. It doesn't have enough nutrients to conceive. And that can inadvertently cause estrogen dominant like symptoms. And that being said, the gut plays a role. There's something called your estrobolome, which is that specific, gut bacteria that help regulate and recycle estrogen. So if that's not working and or you're not having a consistent daily bowel movement, you could have a buildup of that estrogen resulting in those estrogen dominant symptoms. So that's really, really important. If you've ever been told by a doctor that it's normal not to go to the bathroom every single day, you should find a second opinion and a new doctor, in my opinion, because that is not normal. And that is very, very important. I want to also talk about copper and estrogen for a second. So, birth control gives your body artificial estrogen, which can artificially drive copper up, which can lead to inflammation. So, this is kind of a secondary effect of having high estrogen due to poor estrogen detoxification in the gut. So, if you have too much estrogen in your body, from not being able to recycle it. And then if you're on birth control, which has artificial estrogen, this can drive up copper levels in your body, which copper is an essential mineral. It's something that is necessary. It's good, but you need, just like with everything else, a balance. And too high of copper can have the same symptoms as estrogen dominance: PMS, PMDD, mood issues, ADHD, anxiety, depression, difficulty sleeping, staying asleep, insomnia, fatigue, muscle aches and pains. I mean, high copper can cause so many things. And this is a big one that I also test in the blood and in the hair to get a full picture, because copper is huge. I was just talking with a new client the other day. We had a discovery call and she ended up signing on with me. I'm really excited to work with her. And she was sharing that her goals are, and she's probably listening to this, her goals are she wants to safely transition off birth control without mood swings and get to the root cause of her mood swings, as well as not have painful periods. And I, in our DM conversation, was telling her, I was like, here's my free Breakup with Birth Control Masterclass to learn more about my approach. And I also linked a podcast that I did a while back about my 2 favorite non-hormonal birth control options. And I said, for you, I would not recommend the copper IUD right now unless you get your copper levels tested, because I do see a lot of times when there's more of this inflammatory response from copper, which all of this connects to the gut, it makes things worse if you get that copper IUD. So this is where I'm not just talking about with my clients about how to transition off birth control. I'm talking about post birth control options. Do you want to do fertility awareness method, or is the copper IUD something that would be helpful? I want to set women up for success afterwards. So if they aren't planning on getting pregnant, they have a very safe, natural way to prevent that from happening. So a few things, once again, doctors will not educate you on when you're coming off birth control is what are your options and what is the best option for you. So that is definitely something to consider, and something that I do test in all of my clients, because that's an important one, is copper levels and how they synergistically relate to estrogen. On the opposite end of the spectrum, estrogen and iodine have an inverse relationship. And iodine is a really, really important mineral that a lot of women are low in. I also test my VIP clients with iodine, because low iodine can result in these estrogen dominant like symptoms. So if your levels of estrogen are too high and your iodine is really low, that can cause those symptoms as well. So you can see how all of these things connect again. Next, I want to talk about the impact of stress on your gut, which this is something my old self would breeze past and be like, yeah, I know stress, like nothing I can do about it. But this is really big. And the more I get into this work, the more I realize like this is key for so many people. I truly have seen so many people when they are continuing to struggle, a lot of times it's stress in their nervous system. And if we're not addressing that, we're doing people a disservice, because it truly, truly is so foundational. If you're constantly in fight or flight, I mean, your body isn't going to put the necessary energy to your digestive system to digest and absorb food, which you need food and minerals and vitamins and calories to function and to have optimal hormones. Stress also contributes to that intestinal permeability, which then, or that leaky gut, which can then result in inflammation, chronic inflammation. And that really can contribute to a lot of symptoms of hormone imbalances. And then a quick note on birth control. I already talked about this a little bit, but birth control depletes beneficial gut bacteria, promotes the growth of non-beneficial bad bacteria in the gut. It slows down your digestion and it can cause nutrient deficiencies as well. And it causes inflammation. So, lots of layers here of things that can add to inflammation, which, as we are well aware, can impact your hormones in a negative way. So, next, I want to share a case study with you all. So, this is a client because I want to put this into perspective of, things that you can do and real life examples of clients who came to me experiencing, both gut stuff and also hormone stuff and how they were all related. So I think it's fun to see this in real life. This first one is my client S, and she came to me struggling with chronic bloating, nausea, insomnia, ADHD, anxiety, heavy and painful periods, and extreme fatigue. And she was originally put on birth control at 12 years old. She is now in her mid to late 20s. And she was originally put on birth control at 12 years old to manage painful periods. Birth control, as you now hopefully know, isn't actually fixing your painful periods. It's just masking them. It's adding fuel to the fire. It's actually not solving the problem, and because of its mechanisms, it makes them worse. So when you do come off of birth control, those are going to come back with a vengeance if you don't properly address the deeper root causes. And that's why so many women are stuck in this cycle of, they come off birth control, their painful periods come back, or whatever symptom they were originally put on birth control, whether it's acne, missing periods, and then their doctors give them no other resources besides just go back on birth control, which is why I am here to help break that cycle and empower women to find something different, because it's totally possible to heal your body naturally. But anyways, so that's an important piece of her puzzle. So she's been on birth control for over 10 years. So really right away, I am thinking, okay, she's had all these symptoms for a really long time, specifically her painful periods. That was one of the first things that started. That's why she was put on birth control to begin with. And I see this trend too, I'm not diagnosing any of these things or, getting into the mechanisms of it, but I can't help but wonder whenever I see someone with all these symptoms and this long-standing history of being on birth control, I'm like, those things add up, right? Birth control impacts the brain. It impacts digestion. So maybe her insomnia and her chronic bloating and her anxiety and extreme fatigue could be from one of the factors, prolonged birth control use. There's lots of other things going on here, but that's one of the things that I think about being in this field that most providers don't. So we ran some functional lab testing on her, and a few key takeaways. Her stool test showed very clear gut inflammation. She had extremely low levels of good bacteria. So she didn't have very much pathogenic overgrowth, but her levels of beneficial bacteria were extremely low. And she had been on rounds of antibiotics. She'd seen gut specialists before. And so, that helped for a little bit, but then her symptoms kept coming back and it wiped out her good bacteria in the process, which made things worse in the long run. She also had a weak gut immune response too. So her secretory IgA on the GI map was really low, which indicates that she does have signs of intestinal permeability, which causes that widespread inflammation, which definitely could contribute to some of her mood symptoms, her heavy and painful periods, and her fatigue as well. Her functional blood labs that we ran showed high copper levels. So she did have high copper levels, adding to inflammation. I like to see copper around 100. Hers was like 187. So it was almost double where it should have been. She also had low zinc and magnesium, which are really important they're very important for hormone balancing. And her liver detox pathways were very sluggish. So she needed a lot of liver support, a lot of detox support, and just overall nutrition support as well to lower the inflammation. So a snapshot of her healing plan, and mind you, I work with clients anywhere from right now, it's an average of 5 months. But her healing plan in a nutshell, a few of the main key takeaways we gathered and implemented was for her, we did trial a gluten reduction plan. And I'm very, very careful with this. I only reduce or recommend eliminating foods if it's absolutely necessary. But for her, her GI map was clearly showing that she was having an immune response to gluten. That combined with the other inflammation markers in her body, I was like, we just got to take this out for a little bit of time just to get this inflammation down. And we worked together to make that possible and so that she wasn't feeling deprived. And that was really, really helpful for her. And a lot of times with this, you don't have to eliminate it forever. It might be something that it's helpful to reduce for a prolonged period of time, or it might be something that once we address the deeper root causes, you can reincorporate gluten without any issues. So we did a gluten reduction and elimination plan, and we focused really hard on rebalancing her minerals and getting those vitamin levels back up through foods and targeted supplements. We also incorporated gut nourishing foods for her to help repair that gut lining. So, bone broth, more protein, fiber, healthy fats, fiber in fruits and vegetables specifically, because she was not having very much of that. Those were all things that we incorporated into her day to day life too. And she was someone who she really had poor nutrition habits just in general. She was very busy, very stressed. And so we worked together to figure out how can we, you know, add nutritional elements to your food without you feeling like it's too much work. And that's something that is very, very important for me as a practitioner is to make these things realistic for the long haul versus this intense plan that isn't manageable to do in the first place or to keep up with. We also added some liver detox support, specifically adding cruciferous vegetables. So this is like, think your like smelly vegetables like Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, things like that, dandelion tea, and castor oil packs, which I'll link my favorite castor oil pack below if you are interested in that. And finally, we did a high copper detox protocol, which sounds intense, but it's actually not. It's supporting the liver and supporting the detox pathways, which we already were doing, but then adding in a couple targeted supplements to get rid of that high free copper in her body to really, really help with inflammation and her mood and her gut symptoms as well. So all of these things, we are still working together on some of these things because she had a lot going on, but I'm happy to report that she's feeling much better and we are in the process of getting her high copper protocol finalized and working down on that. So that's a really far back bird's eye view. The next client case I want to share with you is my client Elle. So Elle came to me, she had been on birth control for 15 plus years and she actually wanted to stay on birth control. So she wanted to stay on, but she was having significant gut issues. And she was one of those people that she had struggled with this for her entire life. And she just was like, she'd seen so many specialists, spent so much money, and was like, this is just, I'm going to have to just suffer like this. I did a presentation somewhere and she connected with me and I was like, nope, I got you. Let's figure this out. So she started working with me on a VIP level and I'm happy to report she is no longer working with me and she graduated successfully and says that her symptoms have improved so much and she has regular digestion, no abdominal pain, and so much more energy. So what her labs found, her lab findings were her GI map showed low beneficial flora again. So you can see this is a common theme that I see in a lot of my women, especially with gut issues, because they oftentimes go to conventional doctors or GI specialists and they put them on antibiotic after antibiotic, which kills the beneficial flora. She also had an imbalanced gut microbiome. So she did have pathogenic overgrowth or like opportunistic overgrowth. And this is likely due to the long-term birth control use as well as all the antibiotics that she had been on. She had also been following really restrictive eating plans as well. So she had been on low FODMAP, gluten-free, dairy-free, no alcohol, low sugar, pretty much any restrictive diet you can think of, but it wasn't working. So when your diet is restricted so much, that also negatively impacts your gut microbiome because your gut loves variety. So the more variety you can eat, the healthier your gut is going to be, just as an aside. Her hair tissue mineral test showed low minerals across the board. So she had low magnesium, potassium, calcium, zinc, and sodium. So a lot of her minerals, including all four of her macro minerals, were really, really low. And minerals are so crucial for your gut health, especially if you're experiencing any bloat, constipation, or diarrhea. I always recommend checking your minerals versus just testing your stool, because that's also a missing piece of the puzzle that a lot of GI people miss. So her specific healing plan, we focus on microbiome restoration with probiotic and prebiotic rich foods. So like sauerkraut, kefir, resistant starches like cooked and cooled potatoes and rice. We went hard on the mineral replenishment, so mineral mocktails and focusing on targeted supplements to replenish all the minerals that she was low in. And once she was ready and feeling comfortable, we started slowly reintroducing previously feared foods to build up her gut tolerance and reincorporate variety. And that was really helpful to do together because, as you can imagine, there's a lot of fear around reincorporating foods when you've been, she shared a story where she was so sick on vacation that she like literally couldn't leave her hotel room. So obviously that's really traumatic and you don't want that to happen. So this is where working one-on-one with a professional to like really get to the root cause is so, so helpful. So like I said, her symptoms after 4 months of working together dramatically improved and she successfully graduated. And I haven't heard from her, which is really, really good. She gave me a great review and haven't heard from her. So I'm counting that as a big success. So those are two real life stories of clients who I've worked with who had a combo of gut and hormone imbalances. So now I want to jump into, to finish us off, of like how to heal your gut to balance out your hormones, practical strategies. So the first one is focusing on replenishing nutrients, especially if you have a past history of or current use of birth control. Mineral testing is super helpful. I do this in my birth control reset or my VIP one-on-one coaching if you're looking for individualized testing for yourself. But test versus guess, so you're not wasting your hard-earned money on supplements that actually don't serve you or don't make an impact. And then once you know your mineral levels, doing mineral mocktails that are specific to your mineral needs, targeted foods, and targeted supplements to replenish those minerals for gut health and hormone balance. Foods to support digestion overall would be probiotics and prebiotics. So prebiotics feed the good bacteria, which is your probiotics. So prebiotic-rich foods include onion, garlic, asparagus, artichokes, bananas, especially like the greener ones, apples, berries, beans and lentils, oats, barley, sweet potatoes. Those are types of foods that are prebiotic-rich foods. And then probiotic-rich foods are going to be like your fermented foods. So think kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir, yogurt, those types of things. And those are really great in combination. One thing I will say is if you have a histamine intolerance, these things can actually exacerbate those symptoms. So that's where doing a comprehensive stool analysis can be helpful, just to rule that out. Resistant starch foods. So this would be the cooked and cooled potatoes, oats, chia seeds, and I love to sprinkle potato starch in my oatmeal, smoothies, and yogurt. This helps feed that beneficial bacteria in your gut and is really, really beneficial for people who have low levels of good bacteria. Managing stress through deep breathing and enjoyable movement, quality sleep, doing things that you enjoy, nervous system support, all really, really helpful. Again, I can't emphasize enough how important it is for your gut and your hormones and every part of your body to manage your stress. And this doesn't have to be completely stress-free life. That's not realistic. And again, I want to be realistic. But so many of us neglect this, and it is a huge key player in our overall health. Optimizing detox pathways. Your whole body is so connected, as you can see from this entire episode, but your liver also needs to be supported because supporting detox pathways is essential for hormone and gut health because it helps eliminate excess hormones, toxins, and waste. And the liver also processes estrogen and other hormones while the gut ensures proper elimination. So they work two and two, hand in hand. So liver supportive foods, including beets, dandelion tea, cruciferous vegetables, castor oil packs, and sweating, So you can either sweat through infrared sauna or any type of movement where you're sweating, or being outside and sweating is great. And finally, personalized testing. Test, don't guess. So functional labs really give you that deep data into what your body specifically needs to heal and to give you answers of what's causing your gut issues, what's causing your hormone imbalances. And this is why I do a series of labs with my clients, and that's included in VIP one-on-one coaching, because it's so important to know exactly how everything is connected. Because, going back to myself, I struggled with acne and a lot of hormone related symptoms, and my gut was a huge player in it. And I missed that for so many years until I did these functional labs that I now run on everybody. And it's so, so necessary. So we need to look at all the different puzzle pieces versus just like putting one here, putting one there, trying to DIY it. This is why so many people are stuck for so long, because they don't have the right labs run, they don't have the right support, and they don't have the right personalized plan for them. So I always, always, always recommend investing in personalized functional lab testing to get to the deeper root issues here. All right, so let's end how I always do, with how I'm nourishing myself in this season. I am actually really proud of this one. I had a pretty stressful day a few days ago. This was actually with the client who I was telling you about, who I'm just starting to work with. She is so lovely, and she messaged me and she's like, "Hey, like I'm ready to go. I would like to do this payment plan option." So I was like, "Great!" Like send her the link, and I didn't know, so I just started accepting Affirm payment. So it's extended payment plans. So this allows clients to make a longer period of payments at smaller amounts over a longer period of time. So I just started doing that, and I didn't realize that you can't use your HSA or FSA cards with that. So she tried paying with her HSA. It came back and it declined it. And I was like, "Oh, okay, interesting." So I was like, "Well, I know that the platform I use does accept HSA and FSA. So let's work out a custom payment plan option that fits your needs and your budget so you can get the support you're looking for." So she was so kind and so, generous, and she was like, "Okay, it sounds great." So we worked that out, sent her the link, and it was declined again. And so at this point, I'm like, "Oh man, I seem like I had all these stories going through my head of like, she thinks I'm a bad business owner. She doesn't think I have my shit together. Like, this is a bad representation of me. She's going to not want to be a client anymore." Just all of these things. And she was just the best. She was communicative with me. She was like, "No problem." She called her HSA card just to kind of check things out. And come to find out, like they had blocked me as they had thought I was like a suspicious user. So that was an issue. But then another issue on the back end was somehow my account had been disabled to take HSA, FSA cards. So I had to go through this whole process. And it was just, again, I had all these stories, and I was like, okay, this person really wants to get going, and I feel bad. Like, she's just been so kind. And I put all this stress on myself. And I recognized what I was doing. And I was like, nope, this isn't my fault. This is a learning experience. I did nothing wrong. This client has been so kind and so gracious, and she's ready to go, and she's being patient with me. She's working with me. That's the best case scenario. I mean, I could have had someone who was completely, mean about it, and blamed me for it, even though it wasn't my fault. So I did some breath work. I reminded myself that this is not my fault. This is a learning experience. It'll all get okay. So I signed off that night. I was like, "Hey, like I'm still working on this on the back end. I'll reach back out tomorrow once I have some more info." Signed off. The next day, logged back on, and I was able to get my account all set back up again. Don't know what happened where it enabled me, or disabled me rather, to not take HSA and FSA for a period of time, but sent her the link and she was able to sign up. So it all worked out. And previous me would have just, again, made up all these stories, played all these things in my head of like what a bad business owner I was, how I should have known better, how it was my fault, how she wasn't going to work with me and she was going to think poorly of me. And instead, I recognized like, it's okay. Like, I'm learning from this. It was very helpful versus just going into fight or flight and having all these negative emotions and blaming myself, to defy that perfectionism in myself and be like, nope, it's all right. So it was a really big moment for me, because that totally would not have been my MO. And I would have really freaked myself out and just made everything worse and made myself sick over something that's just such a small thing. So that's how I'm nourishing myself recently, is really managing that stressful situation really, really well. For all my recovering perfectionists out there, that's just a little ode to you to do the same thing and kind of think through it like that and reframe that thought when you have those stories coming up, or maybe when you're self criticizing or blaming yourself. Hopefully, this was a helpful episode, and hopefully, you understand a deeper layer of your hormone health and as it relates to your gut health, maybe your gut symptoms and your hormone symptoms, and how everything in the body plays together. If you liked this episode, please, please, please leave a 5-star review, like, comment, subscribe, and I would really, really appreciate it. It really helps grow the show and helps more people find the podcast who need it. Until next time, stay nourished.